current position of the European Commission is that trade policy can indeed promote social and environmental standards, but it has to be following a number of principles. And let me reiterate what are those in our view. Coherence, there must be coherence with the foreign policy objectives, but of course it cannot be one size fits all. If a country, a partner does not accept the standard formulation, one has to be able to flexible enough to negotiate formulations which are then fitting a specific partner.
This is just a list of ideas, suggestions as to what one might do if one were interested in ensuring high standards. And of course there is a big debate about how much you want to do this. I'm not taking a position, but if this were the policy choice, these are some of the things that could be done in summary. So one thing is to watch out for this disappearing human rights clause and be somewhat skeptical of arguments that you don't need one in a trade agreement because an existing human rights clause covers it. Civil society is pretty weak in the Peru agreement. It's a lot better, a lot stronger in the CARIFORUM agreement, but it's nowhere near as strong as in the practice of the US and so on. Now, again, I'm not saying how successful that has been. In fact, it hasn't really amounted to an awful lot in almost all cases, but it's there and it says something. And then, of course, the lawyer's favorite, more remedies.
We are now facing enormous challenges as far as green technology, renewable energy technologies are concerned. We are in need of billions of investment in the world, and one of the most important contributions that a free trade agreement, multilateral, bilateral, WTO, whatever, can contribute to is basically free the market and level the playing field.
In the area of social, there Mr. Hofmeister already indicated that we do not have progress whatsoever in the WTO. It's quite interesting, because in the Havana Charter of 1947, we had a chapter of fair labor standards. The charter was, of course, never adopted and never became an international organization. In 1995, however, the WTO was founded. But in 1996, at the Singapore ministerial meeting, the WTO decided to defer to the ILO for all social issues. And I don't know who of you was present in Seattle at the WTO ministerial conference, and at that conference, one of the big explosions of the conference was that President Clinton announced at the Labor Union Congress that one should enforce social issues through WTO dispute settlement. And
I think the elephant in the room, which is fascinating, I haven't heard too much discussion about this, is China. Right? Everybody talks about China as the key driver of concerns about this. Talk about China and its new role on the global stage, the kinds of agreements, its investments in China, in Africa and Latin America, focusing on resource and commodity areas. And China being known for not caring, as they say, about social and environmental and cultural issues, that they provide no strings attached economic relationships. Given an alternative between the EU and China, why would a country not go with China?
Environmental, social and human rights issues can be included in free trade agreements and should be included in free trade agreements. Perhaps we have a different approach comparing what Frank Hofmeister said to what Mr. Bartels said. There are other free trade agreements, especially signed by the United States of America, which have perhaps further regulations or further standards included in the agreements, but there is the great question of practicability and effectiveness.
The Union is based on values, and they run through all that we do here in the Parliament as well as in the other institutions, and that is really why we're here and working so hard. And if we don't reflect those into our external policies, and it is good to hear that we have shifted from discussing whether they should be in there to being in there. And I think now we need to be fine-tuning them to make sure that specific types of industries are included, especially environmental